Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundaries. We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love. The COVID-19 pandemic has irrevocably shaped how connections are formed in congregations across the United States and the world. The Church of the Larger Fellowship is committed to being a resource within Unitarian Universalism and beyond. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine Quest to our online community hub and our letter writing ministry. We have found ways to build connection and community, even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison. The CLF supports the ministries of those who hold target identities: Blue, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism; Trust, Transgender Religious UU Professionals Together; and Drum, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, just to name a few. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed, even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The View. The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message.
Hi, everyone. Okay, I am doing tech today, and now I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of how does that work? Okay. All right, hold on. No. I'm going to get this right. Nope, now we all disappeared. Hold on.
Well, there we go.
No, how do I? Okay, hold on. Remove.
Oh, there you go.
Welcome to The View. I'm Aisha Hauser. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm coming to you from Seattle, Washington, land of the Coast Salish people. I am part of the lead ministry team of the Church of Larger Fellowship, along with Reverend Dr. Michael Tino, who is not here today, but my other two co-hosts are. And we have a host roundtable. It is sunny in Seattle, and that is beautiful. I am I heard somebody say, stop saying middle-aged, because what does that mean? So I am a brown-skinned woman with wild curly hair that is black with gray in it, so that maybe indicates my age, and I'm wearing glasses, and a keffiyeh, the symbol of the freedom for Palestinian people. Free Palestine. Donté, how are you? Where are you?
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, however you are. I'm Donté Hilliard. I serve as a learning fellow for the Church of the Larger Fellowship. I am here in the land of the Piscataway people, also known as Baltimore, Maryland, USA. It looks like the heat is finally showing up. And I live in a brick house built in the 1800s that faces due west. So, in the evenings, it feels like I'm in a pizza oven. But,
Ooh.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm indoors. So, GC, what's going on?
Hi. I was here at church this morning way too early painting, because the shit they don't tell you in seminary. I'm Reverend DC Fortune. I he, him pronouns, and I am coming to you from the confluence of the west and north branches of the Susquehanna River in central Pennsylvania, the historic land of the Susquehannock people. I am in Northumberland, Pennsylvania. And it's, this is the first thing I've done where I'm talking to like people in official capacity today. So let's see what else. I think I'll stop before I say something that'll.
We'll do that later. It's May
Aisha.
Day. May Day. It is May the 1st, the International Global Workers' Rights Day. And so, yeah, we got a lot to dive into. I was telling, we were talking before we went on air that I want to talk about the movie Sinners. I don't want to give away any spoilers. I do want to say it is a horror film. There are vampires and there's gore, but I will tell you, and I do not like the horror genre. It's not something I'm into. And the storyline of this, Ryan Coogler has to be one of the most genius and creative storytellers and filmmakers ever, not even just modern history, ever. Because I was so enthralled with the relationships and the symbolism and it's layers of metaphors that the gore was kind of secondary to everything else going on. It was so good. And one of the, now I'm glad I saw it when my friend Kimberly was here and she said, I want to go see this movie, this new movie. And I hadn't heard of it and there wasn't yet. And it was like 3 days after it opened. So thankfully I went in knowing nothing. And now, of course, there's all over the internet. And one of the lines I saw is the juke joint, which is the place where there's dancing and joy. The person said the juke joint is the battleground for joy because the setting of the film is Jim Crow, Mississippi in the 30s, and all that comes with it. So anyway, I'll leave that there. But I did want to talk. And then Donté, I liked where you were, what you lifted up from that. And you haven't seen it yet, neither of you, right? You have to go see it.
I'm actually on the.
Go ahead.
I'm actually on the website for the local movie plex thing, and I'm writing down the showing times.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out if I can leave here early enough that I can catch one.
I have not seen it, but I'm sorry, DC.
Oh no, I was just because I'm like I have to get a matinee because I'm totally too old to be out that late at night. I can't get an 8:00 show. No, I'll be asleep by then. Nope.
The only reason I haven't seen it is because I just am not itching to be back in theaters. So ever since the pandemic, I've only been back once, and it was to see Black Panther 2. And I went to a 10 p.m. showing on a Tuesday night, like where it was like me and 2 people in the theater.
That's awesome.
Because I'm just not. That's the only reason I haven't seen it. But I have to tell y'all, I am loving the Black creatives who are out here telling the stories that whiteness is the evil that haunts us. And I'm here for it, whether it's Jordan Peele's Get Out, whether it's Lovecraft Country, which if you haven't seen it, oh my. I know Jonathan Majors has gotten himself into a lot of PR trouble, but that show, if you haven't seen it, have either of you seen Lovecraft Country?
No, I got to see it. I've heard buzz about that too. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes, now that you've seen it, you got to go watch Lovecraft Country.
Okay, I'm going to.
And
gotta
Lovecraft Country.
Mm-hmm.
It's starring Jonathan Majors and Journey Smollett. And It is phenomenal. And it also, Sinners also reminds me of this graphic novel called Bitter Root, which is about this Black intergenerational family in Harlem. I think it's the 20s, but they are generational monster hunters. This is what they do. And
Nice.
so using
That sounds cool.
And I think Sinners is, from what I'm reading, is also making this point that what we call hoodoo in the African American tradition, which is not voodoo, which comes from voodoo, which is a different tradition. Hoodoo is very specific to Black Americans, and part of its creation was to combat the evil of whiteness, the evil that we were facing here. So when I meet white people who claim to be voodoo, I'm like, I don't trust that, because this tradition was created to like combat what your ancestors were doing. So I don't trust that. But yeah, so Bitter Root, if you're into graphic novels, you should check out Bitter Root. Okay.
Excellent. I want to talk, because I want to definitely move into evil. This Sunday is May the 4th. I preached a sermon that I recorded for a congregation to show they're a lay-led congregation. Anyway, that's not my point. My point is I did a whole sermon on May the 4th and the force and the idea of the force and good and evil being inside us, and which do you lean into? And of course I quoted Yoda. And then I talked about the plot twist heard around the world, Luke, I am your father. And what was for me, like now as a full ass adult thinking about that scene, is it's so emblematic of the entire franchise, and really like the human condition of Luke now finds this person who's the lead of the empire, and this evil person actually he's half of that person, right? They're both like, so quite literally he has the force and the symbolism of what is the most evil inside him, and kind of grappling with that and having that tension through the movies. And I mean, as a Unitarian Versalist, we don't, and Martin Luther King Jr. said this when he visited a Unitarian church in Boston, you all do not grapple with evil, you all being Unitarian Universalists. And we don't, because even for me, I'm going to talk personally, I'm not going to talk for the entire faith. I want to believe that what I said actually in the sermon is, yes, hurt people. And what happens when we are in the dilemma of hurt people committing genocide? What happens when hurt people commit unspeakable and barbaric acts in the name of protection, right? Because that's what's happening now. So I want to, because maybe the explanation of hurt people isn't enough. I don't know.
And hurt people who are marginalized in society is different than hurt people who have the material and structural resources to destroy you.
Say that again. Please elaborate.
Right.
Please elaborate.
Right.
Yep. So again, the first lesson in seminary, all theology is contextual. So hurt people, but that's why we talk about racist. Black people can't be racist, because to be racist, to be white supremacist, it means you have to have a certain kind of power structurally.
Right.
So that, if I don't like a white person, okay, I don't like you. And this is what I would say to people. If a white person doesn't like me, big deal. Ha ha ha. Like, I don't care. But if you don't like me and you have the material and structural resources to kill, maim, and destroy me and my family just because of your not likingness with impunity, because the system will not stop you and will not restrain you or hold you accountable for it. That's not that we don't have, our disliking is not the same.
Yes.
It's not the same.
sitting at that for a minute, because I think that is where, when I hear people still, now they won't use the actual phrase "all lives matter," but that was what they mean. Like, there's still this fundamental misunderstanding of how the embedded power imbalance in the United States has impacted generations of people. Like, there's still that denial. There's still the buy-in of a meritocracy. There still is. Yeah. So I think power, a conversation without talking about power with race, gender, I mean, is a incomplete conversation, and it's an incomplete narrative that just favors the people in power.
Now, and then, so the question is, does universal theology include a power analysis?
Does it? I don't think it does. Well, it depends on what you're talking about, right? Like,
or whose universal theology, right? Because Africans had universal theology before the Unitarian Universalist Association ever existed.
Okay.
You know, and other communities had universal, what we might term universal theologies or philosophies, sometimes, depending. Ubuntu, right? This is, I am because we are because I am. That is a humanist universalism. An African humanist universalism. But yeah, so I do think I can't hold a theology that does not hold a power analysis.
Right.
For me, like, that's just, if there's no power analysis, that's not the divinity of my understanding. My divinity requires me to pay attention to power. And guess what? And I'll because I'm a demi-theist, I'll give up my understanding of a divinity because it does not have power analysis. You know, so yeah, because we have to ask ourselves, what do we mean that people have carte blanche to do anything they want to, and then you be like, hey, forgive me. Oh, I'm sorry. And and now everyone's just the same.
So can I have a thought? I have a friend who used to work at a at the only wet homeless shelter for men in the state of Maine. And that means that wet means you don't have to be clean and sober to get a mat on the floor for the night, right? And he told me about, they had this client who was just disruptive and all kinds of stuff. And, and he called him out on it. And he's like, hey, man, you can't be acting like that. Well, I was abused. And my friend Mike was like, yeah, I was abused too. Like, whatever, we've all got issues, kid. The behavior's got to stop. The behavior is what's wrong. Now, my understanding of universalism as it evolved in North America, in New England, in North America, it came out of, it evolved around the time that Unitarian, that humanism was doing its thing, people were beginning to understand, we have the capacity, we hold the divine within us. And the Universalists came out of the Baptist movement, and typically were the ones who were disempowered in the economic system at the time. They were the factory workers or the unemployed, whereas the factory owners were the Unitarians. Okay, and the Universalists, like the Unitarians, understood that God loved them and they would be fine. The universalists understood that humans are imperfect and we screw up and we need mercy. We need a God who can forgive us, right? And so I think sometimes we don't put a fine point on how we understand universalism, which is after death, everybody goes upstairs. But not while you're here. While you're here, you can be accountable to Caesar's rules. Okay? So do I believe that terrible, terrible, terrible people were welcomed into the grace of God? Yes. Because I believe in a God that has the capacity to forgive anything that humans can contrive. Okay? Otherwise, I feel like I'm limiting God's capacity for grace. Go ahead, Aisha.
Well, I get, for me, like, I do believe there's something bigger than us, and it's so hard to be on Team God for me because, or at least, okay, I don't believe in Santa in the sky, right? But if there's like, you know, when I was preaching like about the force, a question I ask myself that's alive. It's not even that I have an answer. It's more like, why do we in modern 2025 society have enough? We have enough to care for each other. And I'm talking globally. I'm talking every human. We can care for the earth. We have the resources. We have the technology. We don't have to speed up climate change. And yet there is something that leads enough people not to do that. That the genocide in Gaza is some dude here from the Likud party was actively lobbying to starve the Palestinians. I mean, they're withholding food. It is a form of, it's beyond war crime. It is. I mean, it is a war crime, but it's also like this. And the fact, like, you know, we have our phones, right? Then I apologize to the humans that it took me so long to understand what's happening in the Congo. Sudan is faced with over 1 million people are facing famine. We have the information, and there are still like, even if I, you know, one of my sadness is if I post in UU spaces, in closed Facebook pages, anything pro-Palestinian or anything against Gaza, I get folks who will talk about anti-Semitism. And I'm like, okay, again, hurt people. And we cannot be witness to hurt people committing genocide and not say anything.
Right.
That makes
sense. We all got issues. The behavior's got to stop.
Well, the behavior, and this is where power comes in, right? What Donté said. Right. So, so I guess my question is, how do we reconcile power when talking about theology? Because if the idea of a divinity is all good, is all that is love and liberation, and I'm not saying this with any knowing, because I'm constantly on the search for truth and meaning. But I mean, I guess, Donté, I want to learn more from you what it looks like to incorporate power into your theology, because I'm not understanding it fully, what you're saying.
Okay, so this is the example that I use. There is a really amazing book, but it's a hard book. It's called Sanctuary. And this book is based on a trunk of postcards that were found. So what I learned was that during the lynching, what we call the historical lynching era, lynchings were public events. They were posted. So we were taught that they were like mob action, but they were actually planned social events. There would be an announcement in the newspaper. Jesus Christ. And so someone found in an attic a trunk full of postcards because they took photos, turned them into postcards, and mailed them to family and friends. Like, had a lynching, wish you were here, right? And these are lynching photos. And so remember, so let's go. Let's say 1920. Is that? How common was a camera?
Oh, not at all.
How expensive was a camera? But there were enough cameras at enough lynchings that they were used as postcards in the mail. And there's this one picture that I saw. It's a lynching of a Black woman from a bridge. So that goes over a river. So it occurs to me, hold on. In order for them to capture this picture of this woman hanging from this bridge, they had to get a photographer, a boat, set it up on the boat in order to capture this image.
Right.
And so when I think about these, and many of us have seen probably the most famous of these, which is of a group of white folks gathered around a lynched Black body that has, I think, also been burned. And what captures me in the picture, there's this little white girl. She's probably like 5 or 7. And I think, how can that person not be fucked up? Because the community around her is telling her, this is okay. This is normal. We're going to kill someone. We're going to eat food and have a good, and then we're going to take pictures with the body. Now, my universalism, maybe mine starts somewhere else. My universalism starts with, as human beings, we all have an opportunity to grow and develop ourselves into our highest self possible in this plane. When we are not encumbered. For me, sin is, which I think sin and evil are human things. They're not divine. And sin and evil are the things that get between us and us becoming our highest self. And some people intentionally get in people's way.
Yeah.
From becoming their highest self, creating through greed, hoarding power, petty jealousy, all these kind of things. We know that the witch burnings and lynchings, the one thing they both had in common were most of the people that were accused had property that white folks wanted.
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The witchiness, the rapiness, that stuff was the propaganda.
Right.
So I don't know if those folks get the same, like, I don't, Christians, we talk about, we want eternal life. Well, I believe in science and we're already eternal. Right? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes forms. So I'm not worried about eternal, but I do think white culture, particularly in an American context, is obsessed with immortality.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. Obsessed.
And a lot of the communities of people who you find marginalized are people who, by and large, don't necessarily think they need to earn more immortality. Witchy people don't, earth-based spiritual practitioners, they're not concerned about hell. Hell is not a controlling narrative for them.
Right.
Right. What we know about my African ancestors, hell was not a controlling metaphor, because my ancestors was like, I will jump off this motherfucking boat and go home, whatever that is, to the other side. There were parents who committed infanticide, like, I would rather my children be dead than live in this hell called
Yeah.
slavery. So
Yeah.
hell and immortality doesn't have the same power in every community. Hell itself is a power grab.
Oof.
And so
Control, right? Yeah.
You have to think about, I just think we have to analyze where the power is in that. Like, because again, do the people committing genocide around the world, do they get just a free pass when it's over?
Yeah.
And what does that mean if we say that the universe bends toward justice? If you believe that God is all merciful and all good, or your divinity, that means our divinity is allowing it. And then it means that our divinity is going to say, I know you disproportionately suffered, but hey, we're all equal. We're all equal. Because you've told lies. So yeah, they committed genocide, you lied, but it's all sin, right? So is that where we are?
Yeah. It feels like that's where we are, unfortunately. But I also think, so here's the other thing. I mean, if we're gonna, I'm using the example. It's
I might be doing too much today, y'all.
No, I love you. No. Keep doing it. So the line of why this genocide in Gaza is happening has been to keep Israel safe, right? And because and there, before October 7, 2023, the third rail of conversation globally was criticizing Israel. You were not allowed. Now, Norway yesterday or the day before just announced opening diplomatic relations with Palestine. Mexico opened diplomatic relations with Palestine. This was unheard of. So part of, I mean, the tragedy, I mean, and tragedy doesn't even seem like a big enough word, of destroying Gaza, and the tragedy is that Gaza had to be destroyed, and there are generations that have been wiped out. Instead of the world believing Palestinians when they were saying we live in an apartheid state. Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote a book, used his social capital with white people to say, this is apartheid. I am a child of Jim Crow. I know what this is. And there's still okay, I'm going to take the circuitous route. What I think is going to happen is, please praise Jesus, let this be over soon, is that whether or not the punishments look the way I may want them to look of the people who perpetrated this, what they won't get a pass anymore. Like, Israel will be different. I don't know what that different looks like, but it will never, like, this is not going to be, regardless of what pipe dream the current administration has about creating a golf course. It's not going to whatever. But the point is that the consequences are already in motion. I do believe that. I believe that the consequences of what's going to happen is already in motion. Yeah, we could talk about South Africa and Truth and Reconciliation and how, So I don't know. I don't preach about forgiveness. I talk about repair, and I've not read Repair and Repentance yet, but I will. Because forgiveness is very personal. Whether or not I want to forgive, that's between me and myself and I. But repair is actionable. Do I want to, when I harm someone, I say, what can I do to repair this? Sometimes nothing. Sometimes the person's like, stay the fuck away from me. Fair. But I don't ask anyone for forgiveness. I don't say, because I don't want anybody to ask me. That is, whether or not I forgive you, my heart's up to me.
Asking for forgiveness is manipulation.
Thank you. Say yes.
It is manipulation. I know I did something wrong to you, and now I'm going to, you have to, you must. So you're literally playing on that person's heartstrings to put your need to feel forgiven over the trauma and the pain that you caused them.
Say that.
So if you want to piss me off, ask me for forgiveness. Don't ask me for forgiveness. Be different. Be better.
That's right. That's right.
Or as Jesus would say, as recorded in the scriptures, go and sin no more. Like, do something different. I still don't want to fuck with you, but be better.
Right.
Be different, because you've tore your draws with me. But I wanted to come back to the thing you said, like, people didn't believe them when they said they're living in apartheid. See, I don't believe that.
Oh, okay. Say more.
Because let's be clear. The Western world helped Israel steal the land in the 40s from those people.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
These people were there.
They sure were.
This other group of people showed up and said, our God promised our ancestors that this was our land.
That's right.
And the people's like, well, that's weird, because our people have been on this land for many a generation.
That's right.
And the Western world sided with that group of people to do what Americans did to the indigenous people here.
That's right. That's right. You're right. All right.
So that's not a secret. I'm so sick of people acting like we don't know how the state of Israel came to be.
Yes, we do.
We helped them. We colluded in stealing of the land.
Right.
And we justified it.
That's right.
And now, and particularly America has to support it because we did the same shit here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've heard people.
You know, so again,
yeah, I've heard people say, well, if you think Palestinians should have their land back, then you should give the Native Americans their land back. You're so close to the point. You're running right into it, running smack into the point, and then blew past it. Yep.
Yeah, we have to accept that, okay, I don't know if I believe in a snake walking around talking to people in the garden. I don't know if I believe in a human-ish figure with horns and a tail and a pitchfork. But there are humans who plot and scheme to harm other people. Happening. Not just individual people, but en masse. And are we saying that no matter how heinous and horrible the things are that people do, they get a pass? Now, here's where I am now, because I don't know. I don't know, because none of us have been to the other side and came back, you know, that we know of, right? So if energy cannot be created or destroyed, it only changes forms. I like to think of the universe like a multi-dimensional infinity sign. But the infinity sign looks like a closed system. But I want to think of it as more of like a snapshot of this spiral. But ultimately, the energy is going to find you. So that's where I kind of like, if you put that shit out in the world, it is going to find you again. Now, since energy cannot be created nor destroyed, it only changes forms, maybe it don't catch you on this side. I don't know. But I just can't believe that you can put out intent. We're not even talking about the shit people just do unknowingly. We're talking the intentional horrors that people are causing, and that doesn't come back their way somehow. I'm not ready to accept that. It's got to come back to you. And I believe that in the shit that I've done, harm that I've caused, it's coming back to me somehow. Because that feels universal to me. That feels like you put it out there, baby, it's coming back. And while you sitting there going, ooh, woe was me, why me, da da da, remember the shit you did. You know. And again, there's a difference between that and structural oppression. Because, you know, some people's like, well, you know, the Africans went through slavery because they needed to find Jesus. No. The Africans were enslaved because the West is greedy.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
like let's be really clear. We didn't draw slavery. You know, the power of what's that shit Oprah was on a few years ago, where you draw whatever in your world because you drew
manifest.
Yeah, we didn't draw slavery to ourselves. No.
And I just want to read Melody H's comment. I have difficulty understanding humans through history. They have always been cruel. Yeah, I mean, I wonder about that. Like, I think I imagine that there have always been, battles for resources. And I think, I want to say very clearly that, and I've preached on this and I've said this before here, I think the estimates are between 12 and 16,000 years that indigenous people have lived on what is now known as the Americas, North, South, Central, right? 1492 is when the Europeans came here and pushed Manifest Destiny and began the genocide of the indigenous population. 1619 is when the first ship of enslaved Africans came here for forced free labor for hundreds of years. And we now are facing the human extinction in addition to the extinction we've caused through violent extractive capitalism. So while I'm sure there is some truth to humans have always been cruel, I do think that the Abrahamic faiths, the Catholic Church, and violent extractive capitalism have not served humanity and have not brought more good. Go ahead, DC. Say what you wrote. Oh, wait. Are you muted? No.
I had muted myself.
Go ahead.
Because I was grumbling obscenities at the state of the world. What I had written was because Melody's right. Like throughout history, humans have always been cruel. And some humans, and there have always been kind humans. So I guess my wonder is there a way for humans to live without doing evil? Like, as a species, are we capable of that? And I don't know.
I think we're capable. I refuse to believe we're completely incapable of evil. We're not incapable of not causing harm.
No.
I think we're capable of not being evil.
Okay, that was the question. Yeah.
I do, because I don't, because there are societies where while there's, okay, I'm gonna, I spent a few days in Europe this summer. I didn't have the menacing feeling that I have here. Like, there was a shooting in my neighborhood last night. There's always shootings in my neighborhood. And this is in Seattle. And I don't particularly worry about it. I mean, because I don't want to live in fear and worry. But when I was in Europe and walked around all hours of the day and night, getting hit by a stray bullet was never anything that hit my mind. And I think the choice that we make in the United States, and well, I think we have the most guns, but choices we make lead to how societies function. This country made the choice because of anti-Blackness and anti-Black racism to not have universal health care. So we do not have a social safety net that is solid because of anti-Black racism. There's a direct line. This is not, I've done workshops on this. This is an actual factual. So that evil of making those choices is very much something we could at any point make a different fucking choice. And so to kind of go a little bit full circle, Donté's point of the white people who brought their children to a picnic to see people murdered has not been dealt with. There has not been repair for that. We know science is proving that generational trauma lives in our cells. What is the generational harm and curse that white people who have been causing this harm have? The slave owners, the families of people who were part of the Klan, the people who brought their children to see murders of Black people. And I mean, the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, if you have not gone, if you are able to go, it is. And when I read that babies and children were lynched, I think we can make different choices, and we have to want to make different choices.
And there's a propaganda machine, because all of I'm convinced that if we follow the money, we will always discover the origins of evil. Because evil is directly tied to the hoarding of power and resources, wherever it shows its fucking head. And it always has a propaganda spin as a cover story for its actions. So part of the propaganda machine of enslavement of Africans was, well, we weren't fully human anyway, right? But so here's the thing. One of the reasons people say, why is racism so hard to deal with? It's because white people have convinced themselves that addressing racism is about helping Black people. But the truth is, anti-racism work is about white people reclaiming their humanity. White supremacy requires white folk to surrender parts of their humanity in order to normalize the violence. The same thing for men around patriarchy. The same thing for heterosexual folk around heteronormativity. When you occupy the privileged position, even if you're not the 1%, in order to make it okay, you have to divorce yourself from layers of your humanity. And so anti-oppression work is about recovering of your humanity, not about helping somebody else out of charity.
And that, I think, gets to such a deep place of it is the quote that is misattributed to James Baldwin, and I haven't yet found who said it, about our liberation being tied together. If you're doing this just to free me, don't do it. Do it because you understand that our destinies and our liberations are tied together.
Yeah.
Whew.
That's why I get so pissed when people talk about, they're trying to dehumanize us. You can't dehumanize me.
No.
Only I can dehumanize me. Your system may try to convince me to dehumanize myself, but you or your system cannot dehumanize me. That's a choice that I make or not make.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And I think that's why people of faith talk about witnessing, and the language of embodied witnessing has been coming up, right? Like, because I think witnessing is the opposite of seeing it and acting like that shit ain't there, which is surrendering your humanity.
So witnessing is the actually having clarity and integrity about what is being seen.
What's happening? Yeah.
What's happening.
It don't mean I know the answers. It don't mean I even know how to fix this shit. But I'm not going to lie to myself. One of the reasons I like living in Baltimore is no matter how much class privilege I have, I can't ignore the reality of poverty. If you live in Baltimore City, you can't.
You can't. Same in Seattle, yeah.
It's very clear. And I think that's the work of our souls. Perhaps humans are here to wrestle with evil. Maybe that's why we're here.
Mm. Well, I think that's, one of the things I said, I don't know why I keep referencing this sermon that I did. I do sermons all the time, but it's what I so love and appreciate about well-told stories and art is it helps us grapple with the human condition and the ways in which we harm each other when we witness that harm and trauma without having to, we don't have to have it happen. We can move through a story. We can witness we can watch a movie. We can, and the feelings that was the thing about Sinners. I don't know when the last time I do know Black Panther and Get Out, when it was a visceral response to what I was watching, right? It was not just like, oh, this is a pleasant story or I laugh or whatever in the appropriate places. There is something in my soul that understands what is happening.
Yeah.
And that is a different experience I do not have with every single thing I watch and hear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you think about Black Panther, one thing I've noticed is, to me, the biggest theological lesson of that movie was Killmonger was not a villain. Killmonger was an accountability measure. The conversation was, y'all got all these goddamn resources over here. And these people are killing us around the world. But you are more invested in keeping yourself safe while you watch us die.
Oof.
And that's a real conversation that continental Africans and Africans in the diaspora have to have. That's a real conversation. Because I know people think, oh, you just always angry about white people. Actually, I don't spend that much time thinking about white people. I'm really thinking about us, like what we need to do. Because
Oprah, who sent her friend Gail. I mean, maybe Gail paid for herself. I'm making assumptions I should not make. But like, Oprah's a billionaire, and Beyonce's a billionaire. Rihanna's a billionaire. The dude who started BET, whose name is escaping me. But there are, billionaires who are Black, who are descendants of enslaved Africans, who are oligarchs, who have immense wealth. Mm-hmm. There is that conversation to be had about what that means.
Mm-hmm. But do we notice that those people from marginalized communities who get that kind of resource are usually the people most unlikely to use them for the communal good?
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that's an accident.
It's conforming, because the story is, if you give it away, you won't have it. It's a story of scarcity.
Yeah. You can hold a PhD, you can be hold a PhD, but I know truck drivers that make more money than professors on the university campus.
Yeah.
So, resources are doled out in a particular kind of way for a particular kind of reason.
Well, 100,000%. And it's all a story. Money's a story. Money and how, resources are real. Water, air, shelter, all of that's real. The money that causes us to own these things, to own land and water and air, is made up. The money, crypto's made. I don't know if crypto isn't the best example of how money's fucking made up. Like, come on, folks. What? And one of the things I think that's happening now with the Etch-a-Sketch that is the current United States that's being shaken every minute is we realize how much the stories are, having a strong CDC, Center for Disease Control, when bird flu is happening is an important thing to have. But there was a story that there's something sinister about vaccines, or there's something wrong with how we talk, like that story becomes reality when the people in power believe it. So this is where power comes in. So right now they're dismantling. There are people, their research that's been funded, that's been cut, and people are mid-study and they're going to die, like mid-study. They cannot continue their meds. They cannot, I mean, it is, yeah. Watch John Oliver. It's on YouTube. Last week tonight, he goes over all of this about what's happening.
You know, measles is running rampant in Kansas.
Measles.
And again, we were talking pre-show, but those of you, if you're paying attention to this whole Bitcoin scam that the Trump administration is doing with this digital currency reserve, please go read the articles where you will see that they say that the Treasury will capitalize that digital currency fund through asset forfeiture. And asset forfeiture is a tool of the state to take the resources of the least of these to empower itself. If you don't believe me, read the Ferguson report by the DOJ, if you can still find it.
Oh, well, that's a big if. That is a big if. Whew, we got 4 minutes, y'all. What have we not covered?
Ireland?
What's going on in Ireland?
I don't know. They just seem to have everything right? Like they recognize, they're like, yo, that's genocide. Like, that's bullshit. That's like, yeah.
When I was in Ireland, there were Palestinian flags everywhere. It was so like, it was definitely did not see that as much in England, where places I went in England, but in Ireland and Belfast especially. I mean, everywhere. It was really cool. That felt good. But Ireland
genocide.
So it's funny you say Ireland. Do you know that the white vampire in Sinners is Irish? So that's a whole, I'm telling you, layers on layers. So yeah, wow.
And because there's a whole history between the Irish and Black folk. Number one, the Irish were considered the N-words of Europe, right? They were considered the bottom barrel of white, right? Like, so they understood that hierarchy. And then when Irish immigrants came here, the reason we call the car they put you in when they arrest you a paddy wagon, because the Irish were used as the slave catchers. That was the Irish immigrants were brought in, and they were often given the role. That's which gave birth to our police forces. Why there's like a strong sort of Irish heritage with policing in America. But if you can trace this back through the enslavement period. So the paddy rollers, that's what they were called, these slave catchers, which again is this sort of Irish, like, again, it's like you might be indentured, or you might have a chance to be, the police. And would I rather be the police or be policed, right? Like, so, yeah.
And that was intentional on the part of the white folks in power, because before the Irish diaspora, right, before the famines, the Irish were sending money to abolitionist causes in the U.S. And then when, 1 million starving people came from Ireland, there's a book called How the Irish Became White. And what happened was they got here, and it was a natural thing for them to form community with the formerly enslaved folks, right? Because understanding colonialism, understanding genocide, understanding England is just being a fuck, right? And it was intentional by the white power structure to offer policing jobs, government jobs to the Irish so that they would become white.
Yes.
And get the privileges of whiteness.
That's right.
Because otherwise they were being treated the same way that the formerly enslaved folks were, or the enslaved folks at that time, depending on when they came. So And I mean, my grandmother's parents were both born in Ireland. And in the part of the world where I came from, where I grew up in Eastern Massachusetts in the Boston area, race relations there, I don't know that they will ever recover from that betrayal. You know, that betrayal based on Irish survival.
Yeah. Well, on that note, that's a whole nother show. Thank you both for an amazing show. I'm going to try to produce this in a way that I do the outro and not, I don't know if this ends abruptly, just forgive me, and I'll see you all next week. Next week we have Natasha Walker, who is running for UUA moderator. So that's going to be
cool.
Very
cool. All right.
All right. Let's see if I can do this.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Have the best week that you can.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. All right. Let's see if I can do this.
Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now, or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The View.